Good morning. Welcome to day 5 of the ITL takeover of the state of football. I can't believe it. Day 5, our last day. Incredible time this week. I hope everyone that's been joining us has really enjoyed it, has been part of it. Because we feel like if you've been watching, you've been part of it as well. Bo, good morning, brother.
Good morning, my man. Yeah, we made it through the week. Rick hasn't pulled the plug on us yet, so maybe we'll get invited back to do another cameo.
Hey, let's not jinx it, man. Let's not jinx it. Let's get through this last hour before we completely start patting ourselves on the back. July 30th, 2021, episode 258. We are, my gosh, Thursday. We are now less than a week away from the 2021 agent exam. For everyone who's been waiting for 2 years for this day to come, it's got to be the feelings have got to be unbelievable. They've got to be exciting. They've got to be very obviously very nervous as well. Lots of emotions that are rolling today, as much as they are for us. So, as the end of this week comes, and after all the build-up and all the work that we've done preparing for this to be done, it's kind of crazy. Bo, who are the guests today?
The guests today, we have Aston Wilson. He's our first guest today of Agency One Athlete Management Group. Then we also have 2 more guests that will follow him, and I'm actually. Where are my notes? I lost my notes now. I'm not going to lie.
Then
we have Matt Lindsey. We have Matt Lindsey. And then we also have Neal McCready. So we have a couple great guests this morning, to wrap up this final week of shows. But nonetheless, it's been an exciting week. And if any of you folks have missed any of these shows prior to this morning, go back and hit the links, because we've really had some great content, real excellent insight into the business.
Totally, man. It's been incredible to have so many accomplished guests. It's been a real blessing to have so many people that are friends of ITL, part of the ITL family, to come on and be part of the show. I think my favorite guest this week, again, I'm showing my biases here because I'm a Houdat, but was having Nick Underhill on to talk about the Taysom versus Jameis race, and Michael Thomas's late surgery, and all the issues associated with that. He was a lot of fun. Jeremiah Searles was great, who the former NFL offensive lineman who will be taking the exam next week. Noah LaMontagne was great, Verdant's Capital Advisors. Still an agent, but primarily a wealth management guy there. Another former NFL offensive lineman. I think I'm sensing a theme there, which I didn't even realize. And my guy Jason Montañez, Jason of Catapult Leadership, who talked about kind of interview skills and tips and how to be at your best when you're in that environment, and what to look for, and when you're doing the interviewing, and all those kinds of things. I guess part of the soft skills that we hear so much about when it comes to working and doing the job of being in the football business. What about you, man?
I think Blake Bedingfield kind of stands out. Just the CO Picado stories, those I'll take to the grave. I love the history of the league, and CO Picado, his mark on the scouting side of it. So here's some detailed guy who spent 2 decades with the Titans alongside CO. But Brandy Moeller was great, and all Jeremy Serlos was great. Everyone's been fantastic. As we mentioned before we went live, I thought their attitude and approach to coming on the program was they were so involved, so detailed, so, free of will. They went overboard in explaining questions we asked. The questions I thought were, fantastic questions as well. I remember just kind of reading before we'd go to each show. I'm like, man, this is a good question. And then, better yet, is we got a good result back. So it's been a fantastic week. I'm thankful that you guys invited me to kind of, sharing these episodes. It's been a good week.
Yeah, well, I think people have been on the show. I don't think they're used to seeing me without you, so I think it would have been kind of weird if it just been me hosting the show. At least everyone who sees us is out on the road, especially in January and February. So I think we're kind of like almost. Without getting too weird, just like we're almost one person to some degree. The Laurel and Hardy of the football business, maybe. Okay, or Abbott and Costello, if you prefer. I don't know, depending on how old you are. All right, so without further ado, let's get it going. Sam, take it away.
enjoyed the training. I pretty much had everything over here.
Bomberitos was the best decision I ever made. You know, I came out and had a great combine.
Bomberitos is exceptional. I've been coming here for 4 years, since I was a rookie, since I came out of college.
Pete and everybody else without them, this wouldn't be possible right now.
Some of the best players in every position, you know, they come here and work out.
The staff is phenomenal. The medical, everybody here is family-based, family-oriented.
Trained here for the combine, and I don't think there's no better place than this.
Got faster, got stronger.
You can't become an agent without passing the exam. We can help. We introduced our first practice test in 2012. Since then, we've added a study guide and a second exam, and we've helped hundreds pass a test that 55% fail. Our clients succeed at a rate 25% higher than others. For the cost of a plane ticket, you can buy our guide and take both our exams multiple times. Check us out.
All right, Bo, tell us who our first guest is.
Well, our first guest today is none other than Aston Wilson. He's the kind of agent who's accomplished a lot without making a big deal about it. He's that rare agent who's had a player drafted without being part of a big agency, as he had in 2015. As an attorney in South Florida, he's also part of the Agency One Athlete Management Group, which has been one of the busiest NFL agencies in the early days of the NIL era. Aston, welcome to the program this morning. The State of Football, how today treating you?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. It's good. It's good. I'm just listening to my neighbor mow the lawn.
Well, hey,
and now we are too. That's cool, man. This is that's part of
we also Lee was on at the beginning of the week, and his little boy had his feet behind his head while he did the show. So we've had some fun, unique stuff. So don't fret it.
Yeah, some of us are still doing that, working from home and schooling, and I went through a whole year of that, so I definitely understand that. But thanks for having me. I love talking to you guys. You know that.
Aston, your firm, Agency One, has been one of the more aggressive ones out there in signing players to NIL deals, and we've been talking about NIL all week. What went into your decision to be aggressive about that and to kind of be one of the leaders, and how do you think it benefits the firm to be in the forefront of all this?
For us, it was more, let's educate the family and the players. Let's find some deals that make sense, and then also help everyone kind of navigate this space for the first time together. We're all familiar with going through things for the first time and not knowing who's who and what's what. So the players that we have and the families that we have relationships with, we said, hey, we're here. We have, I have a legal background. There's another attorney in the company. Use us as a soundboard. If anyone brings any deals to you, let's go through it together, because we have the experience here. And don't have your son or daughter in a situation where they may be not getting their market value, or they're stuck at an appearance an extra long time because they are not, savvy enough to say, hey guys, you only pay me for 2 hours. I can't stay here for 3 hours. Basically with the benefits of having that agent buffer thing. So that's what we got into it for. It's not to get rich. We understand the market for college players, and the NIL is, if you're not a top quarterback, it's going to kind of shake out from there. Even some of the rumors of the Alabama quarterback signing 7-figure NIL, I would love to see those, because I'm not exactly sure if that's a recruiting method by Coach Nick or if that's legitimate or not. But that's where we got into it. And then the impact for the firm, again, is just to kind of navigate this space, learn it, start to help people, start to help set the market for different positions, just so the players and the parents know what to expect, and am I getting return on my investment or return on my time?
Yeah, those are all good questions. Those are all good points to make.
Right. Aston, do you see this NIL deal? I mean, does it help newer agents get a foothold more quickly, or do you feel it's the opposite and it just gives the bigger firms more firepower?
Yeah, I'm going to just go with the latter. I think that a newer agent's not going to have the connections in order to get players in front of different brands and different partnerships. So I think if you're established and you already have those business relationships all over the spectrum of businesses, not just directly on sports, it's going to give you the advantage, because instead of me having to go out and search for new partnerships or just be hunting the deal, I will reach out to my network, and your network's going to help get your player into any type of opportunities that are there. So I don't know, unless the new agent is coming from a marketing background with marketing network, I think it's going to slant towards those companies that already have those relationships in place.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, it really only makes sense that way. Again, unless someone comes in with a really vast set of marketing contacts, that's not an easy thing to just build from scratch like that. Aston, you've seen the industry as an independent agency. We talked about that. Had a player drafted, Rashard Clyett, out of South Florida. Is that right? Is that where Rashard went? A linebacker by the Texans years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now you've partnered with a number of established agents in kind of a new form, kind of in a new firm, kind of joined forces with them. What are the pros and cons of each side of that, Aston?
Going into year 10, it'll be tough for me to tell you what the pros are of being by yourself, because it's a tough battle when you start off that way and have to kind of, the same way for the NIL, learn things as you go, not have anyone guiding you and kind of taking your bumps and bruises. Because I apply the same methods and the same philosophies now that I'm with a company that I did as an independent agent. I'm here for the player, and a lot of people say that, but I'm generally in the meetings when they have things going on off the field, trying to help them build their brand. They have to get insurance, like making sure that they're able to set themselves up off the football field. Because on the football field is the easy part. I see as a former player, I know my players are going to take care of business on the field. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them my knowledge as a business owner and entrepreneur, how to set up these things around you to make yourself successful. So I think being on your own, it's just tough, because how we talk about this all the time. The first question they always ask is, who do you represent? Who is your client list? And so you have to battle against that and then match up to everything else that comes in this industry, once you get your foot in the door. So I think the pros of being teamed up with agents, such as Ron Butler, Ira Turner, Tony Richardson, all guys in the game who have players on rosters. Once we all come together, now we're up to 35 active clients. So we can get in front of those players, and we have that client list, and we're able to talk about our services and get through the door. So I think it's way more beneficial, again, to be with a company of active, young agents that know the game, that have experience. Because I feel like that's how we relate to the players, and that's how we relate to the family. And then we also talk about our network. So at this point, I think the benefits outweigh tenfold, being part of a team than, being solo. So I just think that it's undeniable. If I could start over with a team, and we talk about it, I would love to have done that. It's just not the way my story went. But I'm grateful that I had to learn, because there's a lot of things that I know now that I didn't know in 2012, and if I would listen to myself pitch into that, like if I could watch myself pitch then, I'd probably say, oh, don't say that. Don't say that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And never really knowing that, so I think just the experience, whether you get it individual, like on your own, or with a team, you have to get it, but it's much, much easier, with a team around you, especially if you're established.
Mm-hmm. I got it.
How does, having played the game of collegiate football, and how does that play any dividends, from your time at Florida International when you're going through this process?
I think the value of being a former player is that I know the game. I've coached it, I've played it, and then again, going back to the network, there's still some people that I've connected with at FIU during my time at FIU who now, 15 years later, are coaches at Division I schools, are people, decision makers, are financial advisors with athletes. So to have that network of people that I've known for 15 years makes being able to provide the services to our players easier, because I don't have to vet out a new person. I have a relationship with someone that I've seen over time build their company and build trust in them. So that makes it a little bit easier. And then, as I first mentioned, just knowing football, being able to watch film of guys that we're recruiting and be able to break down, be able to speak their language, kind of being able to have my own scouting board, so when we go into the meetings in the fall in the agency, we stack our board just the way that the teams stack their board. And we decide, hey, do we want to sign this guy? Where is he going to go? What are the teams saying? We don't rely completely on what the outside information is, because we know they can get it wrong in December. We can't. We have to get it right and be on track to go ahead. So I think that just having former player experience and being able to tap into that coaching network is the biggest advantage of being a former player.
Such an important part about having to be able to get it right in December, and something you and I talk about quite a bit. Scouts can be wrong in December as long as they're right in April. Agents have to be right. Not only they have to be right, they're writing checks in December that scouts never have to write. So just a lot about that push and pull of being a scout versus being an agent. Aston, what role will agents play in 5 years? I mean, with the landscape changing as quickly as it is right now, NIL's haven't had a major impact. We don't even know where it's going, really. Will the NFL model look a lot more like the NBA model in 5 years, where you're talking about NFL really making more than money on the marketing rather than the contracts, and where we see contract and negotiation, the fees reduced to 0 or half a point, even for people down the line, even for day 3 kind of players? I mean, do you see that day coming, or do you see it more or less maintaining the structure that we have, that we traditionally have had, in the agent industry?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I hope the agent industry doesn't continue that race to the bottom by pushing down the fees, because I believe what we do is worth the 3%. But as we know, like when you're getting into those top guys, you're negotiating to 2%, 1%, kind of a sliding scale. So I hope it at least stays solid to where it is, where when you're getting down to about the 3rd round, you're still getting your full fee. And we're able to get, like this year, we had a 3rd round draft pick, Ernest Jones, for the Rams, and we got 98% of his total salary, and he was picked 40 of the 3rd round, so almost to the end of the 3rd round. So the contracts are trending to the fully guaranteed, all the complete amount, almost to the bottom of the 3rd round. So that's pretty good. We're trending that way. So hopefully, everyone stays strong, the community stays strong, and keeps everything as it is on the fee side. And for the marketing, just because NIL is here, I don't think that's going to change. It's not going to create more marketing opportunities because there's more people available. I think it might water down the availability and what people are doing. I understand. I think that it's much ado about nothing in the grand scheme of things for the college level, because you have professional guys and you kind of know what they're getting marketing wise, and it's not a lot in relative to their playing contract. So if you go back and you look at these college kids, it's, well, why would a big box like Nike or Ford spend money on the quarterback at X school? Is that going to generate that company more income? Because that's how they look at it. Every company that I've spoken to, they're looking at their profit and losses and return on investment. They're not going to just give out money because it's cool and we want to be in football, so let's just throw this money into football. They're not doing that. They're looking at, is this going to give me money back? Am I going to, and they may test it out for a little bit, like, hey, let's see. But at the end of the day, it's about that bottom line. And I know the savvy corporations aren't going to sink a lot of money into marketing with athletes if that's not going to generate, if there's not a tie in the community for that athlete, if that athlete doesn't generally use that product. And then it has to be someone who has a face. We all know basketball, they don't wear helmets. It's a smaller team, and they control the narrative, because if you move LeBron from one team to the next team, that makes them a championship contender. Just how we see Russell Westbrook making that trade last night, going to LA. That's a major move. In football, you can move a Peyton Manning to Denver, and that doesn't necessarily guarantee they're going to win the Super Bowl, even though they did. And Tom Brady leaving from New England to Tampa, that doesn't guarantee they're going to win the Super Bowl. They had a whole bunch of other things coming to play for them to win. But I don't think the football players move the model as much. And I think that's how they look at the marketing is, one player in a different environment, does that really move the market? So I don't anticipate football trending towards basketball. I wish the players would have more power in terms of the collective bargaining agreement and being able to get things done for them that protect them. But on the marketing side, I think it's relatively going to stay the same. But I was happy to see it change.
Well, I hope that if it changes, it doesn't change at the radical pace that maybe we've seen so far. I'm still kind of trying to figure this out. I think a lot of people are trying to figure this out. I think there's enough money there for everybody to be happy, but let's make sure we do it the right way. Don't burn anyone out. No one gets taken advantage of, I guess. Hopefully there's a happy ending out there for everybody. Aston, thanks again so much for being part of the show. It's an honor to have you, man, and thanks for being a friend for all these years, brother.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day, buddy.
All right, have a good weekend, guys.
All right, a lot of fun. I think Aston's neighbor needs to probably do some clipping and that kind of thing. We'll leave her to that. Bo, who's our next guest, brother?
Our next guest here on the State of Football is Matt Lindsey. He parted ways with the Philadelphia Eagles in February of 2016, but that wasn't the end of his story. He quickly transitioned to the director of player personnel at South Florida, and then he has since become one of the first general managers in college football at Ole Miss. And along the way, he's worked with some of the biggest names in the collegiate game, coaches Nick Saban, Chip Kelly, Will Muschamp, and Lane Kiffin. Matt, thanks for joining us today. Hope the morning's treating you well.
Thanks for having me, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Loud and clear, brother. Loud and clear.
Good.
Good. Perfect.
Good. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on today. It's a pleasure.
Thank
you. So, Matt, man, you're in the vanguard of college-level general managers. So there's not many of you guys out there right now. I think there may be 4 or 5, definitely less than a dozen, maybe about a half dozen. What does this position entail, and how does it differ from being a DPP, a director of player personnel? And does the job title vary, to the degree that does that job title vary among schools?
Yeah, I think everywhere it's going to vary from place to place. I think what you've seen happen the last decade or so in college football is exponential growth on the support staff side. That's not just recruiting, whether it be on campus. It's personnel, it's evaluation, it's your marketing side, your graphics, your social media, your operations side. Every facet of a football program has grown at the college level, and what you're seeing is these coaches, they need someone to help kind of manage the non-coaching staff and oversee a lot of the day-to-day processes, whether it's recruiting or the day-to-day team administration or big things like that have changed. Obviously last year we dealt with a lot of changes with COVID and protocols and rules, and now we've got the NIL stuff that's changing the way we do things and the way our players operate and stuff. So yeah, I think it varies place to place, but at the end of the day, I think these coaches are seeing a need for somebody to kind of help oversee a lot of those areas.
Excellent. Matt, how valuable is your background, NFL background, in becoming the GM at Ole Miss, and how much in demand generally are ex-NFL scouts in the college and personnel and recruiting departments?
Yeah, I think my background in the NFL was extremely valuable. I think the things I learned there of how to evaluate players, how to build a roster, how to build a team. I think those are things that I think about on a daily basis. And my thought when I went to South Carolina was that there would be more and more NFL guys trickling down. And I think you've seen that this past cycle. I think you've seen more and more guys kind of find their niche in college football that have been lifetime NFL guys. And I think you're going to continue to see that. I think with the advent of the transfer portal, the way that is, it's almost like free agency. So it's almost like you kind of have to have a pro scouting department. We do a lot of things here that are really similar to having a pro scouting department, whether it's our opponent breakdown or we're looking at potential transfers or guys in the portal. So you are looking at high school players, you're looking at junior college players, and you're looking at current college players that are in the transfer portal. And it's very similar to what happens at the NFL level. It's a different scale, different way to acquire the players is probably the biggest difference. But yeah, I think you're going to see more and more people with NFL backgrounds come to the college level.
Matt Derby, there are a lot of people that I talk to on a regular basis. I know there are a lot of people you talk to on a regular basis, probably a lot of people watching the show who aspire to be an NFL scout someday. They want to be able to evaluate talent and watch players and do all the things that you've already done. When someone seeks employment at Ole Miss in the recruiting department and says that that person wants to be an NFL scout as a goal, what do you tell them? And do you feel like you can help him become that person, or is it just really too unpredictable who gets selected and who gets hired, and that the process of becoming part of the NFL?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was something that when I started working in Alabama, my goal was not to work in college football. My goal was to work in the NFL, to be a scout, and had grown up, infatuated with the draft and the combine, and so that was my goal and my passion. So that's a very relatable circumstance for me. And so yeah, a lot of the kids, especially the kids that come in here to work in the personnel department, that's what they want to do. They have a goal and aspiration of going to the NFL. And my goal is to create an environment where they can make a seamless transition. And, I've had a few people that have worked with me over the years that have gone on to work at different NFL teams. And that's the first thing they say is, man, like this has been really easy for me versus the other scouting assistant we hired, because, I'm used to doing point of attack tapes and I'm used to managing the board and overseeing that. And so I think that's always our mindset. And our goal is to create an environment where those guys can reach their goal. Now, obviously it is, like you said, it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable profession. The line to get in the door is a mile long, and there's only so many opportunities. A lot of these teams are maybe hiring one scouting assistant a year. So you look at that's probably about 30 new jobs every year that hundreds, maybe even 1,000 people are competing for. So it's very hard to get in. But the good thing is, like I mentioned earlier, college personnel departments are growing at an exponential rate. And so there's more opportunities for these guys to get their foot in the door somewhere and stay in football and stay in personnel. And so that's what I've been encouraged by, is that, there's more jobs than ever, which is good. That is a good thing.
Definitely.
That's a great point.
Matt, how, if at all, has the NIL changed your job, and do you anticipate it changing the questions NFL scouts have about the Rebels this fall?
Yeah, it's another great question. Obviously, we're about a month into it right now, and we're just kind of starting to figure out how this thing's going. And to be honest, it has not changed my job drastically. Obviously, when we're recruiting players, it's something that we do talk about. We have a lot of resources for our players that we can show recruits. Hey, here's what we're doing for our guys. But really, I think it's affected the players more than ever. This is one of the biggest changes that's happened, period, in college football in the last 20, 30 years. And I think what it's allowed our players to do, and what it's going to allow them to do, is grow up and mature a lot faster. A lot of the things when scouts come in here, they ask questions like, how's this guy going to handle his finances? How's he going to do when he's got some money in his pocket? And those are questions that will be already answered, by a lot of these, especially these high profile guys that are going to be, first, second, third round picks. They're going to have some NIL deals. They're going to have some money, and we're going to get to see, does that change them? Does that affect them? And, maybe that jump to the NFL is not as drastic in terms of off the field, of having money, having an agent, being able to manage those things. Maybe that's not quite as hard of a transition for them going forward. And maybe it's not as big of an issue. We'll see. It's still very, very early in this process, but that's what I think. I think it helps answer those questions for scouts a little bit. And it's going to help our players grow up and mature a lot, for sure.
And those are all relevant questions. I mean, I think those are the kind of things that scouts want to know, is how's a player going to handle the off the field stuff and the money that when it comes in, and all those kinds of different issues. Matt, you've worked at some of the most storied programs in the SEC. I mean, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, incredible coaches, incredibly big names. What are some of the ways that each of those schools is similar, and how have they been different?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, it's the SEC. I mean, it's the conference everybody wants to play in, as we've found out the last couple of weeks. But I think the biggest similarities at the three schools are all that we're looking for guys that have NFL traits, height, weight, speed, length, the individual position specifics. All of those are critical for our decision-making of who we're going to sign and how we're going to build our roster. And I think that's why you see, the SEC probably more than any other conference. I mean, everybody wants to talk about the names at the top of the drafts. But there's a lot of guys that get drafted late that are part-time role players on SEC teams. And then they end up getting drafted or signing as an undrafted free agent, making it and making the roster and having a role, having an impact. And they may not have even started at the college. And you see more of those guys in the SEC than any other conference. And I think that's because what I just talked about. I mean, we're recruiting guys with NFL traits, with an NFL skill set. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that everywhere I've been, I feel like we're looking at the same group of players. Obviously every place is a little different, but that's more in probably how you recruit them, who you recruit, what's your footprint, what you're looking for, what style of player fits your scheme. Obviously that changes coach to coach, but fortunately for me, working at Alabama and then working with Ole Mischamp and then here with our defensive staff, we've had a pretty similar skill set in terms of what we're looking for. We believe the game is won at the line of scrimmage, and that's what we're looking for. There may be a few differences here and there of what we look for in our nickel versus this other place, or what we look for in our safeties, but all in all, it's been pretty similar.
Matt, we've talked a lot about NIL this week with the different people who've been on, but one thing we haven't talked about as much and is having maybe even has had a bigger impact on the game so far is the transfer portal. I mean, that's almost kind of become lost in the wash as we talk about NIL and what have you. Can you take us very briefly through the process of identifying when a player becomes part of the portal? How do you identify a player you may be of interest with? Then how do you approach that player? And then how, is it I mean, from here, it seems like a pretty seamless transition. Ole Miss wants a kid, they go sign the kid, and now he comes aboard. But it's got to be a lot harder than that when you've got to fit in to their class schedule and their, all those kind of things. Can you give us just a kind of a quick snapshot of how that whole process works from identifying to actually bringing them on campus?
Yeah. It's hard. I think the timing of it is the issue, is how quickly do you have to make decisions? A lot of times you may see a player tweet out that he's going in the portal. That doesn't always mean he's in the portal that second, so we have to make sure, all right, he's actually in the transfer portal, and check with our compliance. And then we have to, find a way to get in touch with the kid. And a lot of these things, especially the better players that are transferring into this conference or within this conference, they go pretty quick. Their recruitment goes pretty quick. So you have to get your film ready. You have to make quick evaluations. You have to do calls on the kid's character, his wiring, his toughness, his makeup. And you have to be ready to make that decision really quick. A lot of times, like we spend a lot of time trying to get ready and prepare for guys that may go in the portal, looking at smaller level guys that may want to come up, looking at guys that are at big schools that are in they're a little bit further down the depth chart, and all that work is good and it's valuable, but a lot of it is just an effort to be ready, when the kid does go in the portal, so that we can make expedient decisions, because you don't have a lot of time. A lot of times it's usually within about 48 hours is when they make their decision. So that is probably the toughest part. I mean, you don't see good players hang in the portal too long, and I think what it's changed is our mindset too in recruiting of, hey, if we do everything we can, we recruit this guy really well, we have a good relationship with him and his family, his high school coach, whatever it may be, maybe it's okay if we finish second right now. Because if that kid goes to a place and he's unhappy and wants to make a change, we hope we're the first school that comes to mind, when he wants to transfer. And so that's changed our mindset. Obviously, it's going to be a year or two before we see the fruits of that. But that is our mindset going in of like, hey, a lot of these kids are just going to transfer now. And, we want to make sure we leave the recruitment on a good note, whether they sign with us or not. And so I think a lot of people have kind of taken that approach of, hey, it may be okay to finish second right now because give it a year or two and they might come back around to us.
Hey, Matt.
Matt, what about when it comes to actually recruiting your own players and kind of keeping them happy? Do you do things differently now because I guess the threat of the portal's out there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's what everybody's talking about right now. The key words we talk about are development and retention, and making sure that our players, especially the younger guys that are coming in redshirting, that they're having a good experience, that they're happy here, because at any point, they can go in the portal. And so that is a big part that across college football coaching staffs are dealing with right now. And so, yeah, that is a key component. You do have to recruit your own team probably more than ever now.
Hey, Matt, the NIL and I don't know. I mean, we're in the infant stages of it, but do you have an idea, or is there an expectation within Ole Miss of how many players, just say by the end of this season, will have some sort of deal under that NIL language?
Yeah, it's something we've talked about a bunch. I think at the end of the day, we're expecting this to really only affect the top half of our team, and probably even the top, 10 to 20% of our team. And that's the way most people are kind of looking at it. Not to be said, like, there may be a lot of players that benefit from this, but I think across college football, that's what you're going to see is the top players on each team are going to be the ones that benefit the most from this. And I think, we're waiting on our conference, the NCAA, to maybe put some things in place that may spread the wealth a little bit amongst our team. But yeah, all that is still very, very new. I mean, we're still in the infancy of this.
All right, man. Well, listen, thanks so much, Matt, for being so giving of your time. We know that are y'all back yet? Are the guys in?
We are back yet. Yeah, we are back, and we start camp next week. So
okay, man. Well, I know the Bullets are going to start flying quickly. The SEC, y'all don't play out there, obviously. That's one reason why Alabama and UT are, I guess, clamoring to try to get in right now. We didn't even talk about that, what a hot topic that is.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for being part of the show. Really appreciate you being on, buddy.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Well, that was pretty enlightening, and I got to tell you, Bo, we could probably do another whole week just talk about the portal kind of stuff. There's so much to unpack there, so much to talk about, so much going on, and again, I think there's the idea that's like NFL free agency. If someone wants to leave, they leave, they go. If the money's right or whatever the terms and conditions are right. But there's so many little different pieces that you got to work in and kind of figure all that kind of stuff out, because these guys are only there for 3 or 4 years. By the time they come with a portal, it's just 1 year. And if they've got a major that they're serious about, they've got to make sure that if it's there, they've got to do so many things related to that, and that's kind of what makes it a little trickier.
Yeah, and he was talking about, if a player does become available, how urgent they have to be in getting film ready and seeing if this guy fits what, the model of that program is, and if he'll be a good, addition to the team. And, you think about it, and, he's, him, at the beginning of this process is in his role as a GM of Ole Miss. I'm sure there's a lot of learning and new things that he's going to find out and identify. Definitely a great guest, ton of insight, and especially from an SEC program. You don't want to degrade any school, but you're talking about the SEC, the power conference of collegiate football, and having Matt's insight, I thought was terrific.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. All right, so as we talked about at the top of the show, we're less than a week away from the agent exam. I can't believe it. It's crazy. We at ITL obviously have a study guide and 2 practice exams, and we're working with hundreds of people that'll be taking that exam next week. One thing that we haven't discussed is we will have an actual NFL agent, Ian Greengross, based in Chicago, who will go on Sunday night and on Zoom, and we'll take advantage of the Zoom platform that we all kind of are familiar with now. And he'll be working problems live, and he'll be discussing them. He'll be breaking it all down. He'll be kind of using the formulas that he uses to figure out what you need to know when you kind of look at a question in the exam and how to dissect it and how to get things right. And he'll do that for about 90 minutes on Sunday night and about 90 minutes on Monday night. and we'll go. If we have to go over 9 minutes, we will. He'll answer questions on the problems that he works, and he'll answer questions that come in from people. So far, we haven't had a lot of questions submitted for him Sunday and Monday night. But if we have those questions, then he'll answer those. But most importantly, I think the word problems that can be a little tricky, that can really trip people up, those are ones he'll be working on. They get a little complicated sometimes, especially if you're someone like me who smoke comes out of his ears when he tries to add 2 + 2. So it's going to be 2 great sessions. They'll be $75 a piece, or $125 for both of them. We hope that can be a real help for people that are interested in that. We want to make sure that for everyone taking this exam, you've had to wait a long time. You had to this is probably something you've been pursuing for a while. It's probably a dream for you. You don't want to leave anything on the field. And so, I know it's a little bit more money, but hopefully we've kept it reasonable. You certainly you are not obligated to pay for both sessions. You can try out Monday, and then if you like Monday, then you can try out Sunday. And if you don't like Sunday, if you like Sunday, you can come back for Monday, whatever is best for you. One thing that I have tried to explain to a lot of people in the old days before this year, before we kind of knew about Zoom and online exams and that kind of thing, everybody flew to DC. Everybody stayed at the Ritz for 2 nights. Everybody spent, $300, $400 flying into DC unless you live in that metro area. So you got about $700, $800 more or less to play with. Money that you would have spent just getting there, eating, all those kinds of things that happen when you travel. You don't have to spend that money now. So I hope that people are willing to apply that towards passing this exam, which has, traditionally a 55% fail rate. That's not 55% pass. That's 55% that fail. 45% of people pass. And this year, it may be a little trickier than ever because, again, they are expecting a lot of people to come on board. We could see more than 1,000 agents for the first time in probably 10 years if we have traditional passing rates given the number of people that are taking it. So a lot that's going on, a lot to talk about, a lot to think about. We're here for you. We want to work with people. And even if you haven't studied and you haven't really been preparing for this, and maybe you thought, listen, I'm just going to kind of wing this. I mean, after all, it is open book. The answers are right there on the test. This is easy. Usually the last week before the exam is our busiest. That's when we're selling most of our study guides, most of our practice exams. Most people are kind of in that panic stage, and they're kind of like, what am I going to do? And so we're here. And for all those people, listen, we are here. We're here to try to help you pass. We want to work with you. We talked about all week that at ITL we're about win-win. So we want to make you succeed in football, and this is one way that we do that is helping you pass the exam. Bo, you ever thought about being an agent, buddy?
No, I've been around you too much to see all the horror stories, and I've done enough interviews with players and talked with agents to hear all those horror stories. And there's one agent I know that we've had pizza with that is one of the funnest guys, and we usually frequent with him down at the East-West Shrine game. And he is the fun storyteller. And reverberating on what Neal has mentioned about the ITL in this exam phase, just like in high school or college, you're going to always have procrastinators. You're going to have the people who want to wait last minute. And if you're in that predicament and you're going to take this test next Thursday and you really kind of been hawing around in terms of prep, I really suggest, and again, I've said this all week long, I'm always with Neal during the All-Star games, during the Combine, CGS, with him, and agents that are new to the business that have taken this, they always walk up, they shake Neal's hand, they tell him thank you and how valuable and how much this helped them. And it's fun. You never want to see anybody not succeed in any element. And I like to joke around. Everybody wants to always get ahead. Consider this exam a little bit of like a performance enhancement drug. Without it, you're not playing on a level field. This is going to give you a little bit of that extra boost that might get your foot in door before other agencies. And if your foot's in the door after Thursday, then you got a whole year to recruit before all those agents that failed. So I really encourage all those that are interested in doing this to apply for it, do the Sunday. If you do Sunday, I guarantee you're going to want Monday. And it's for, again, and the cost, as he mentioned, travel, food, $1.25, and you blow that on dinner and drinks with your wife or your girlfriend. So, I mean, it's simple money. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, Bo, I think that a lot of people don't realize when you register for this, you spend $2,500 and you don't get that back. That's non-refundable just to take the exam. But you only get 2 tries. And if you fail both times, you got to sit out for 5 years. I have 2 people that are using our services this year that failed it 5 years ago, and they're coming back for more. You do not want to be in those shoes. I mean, that's a long time to have to wait if things don't go well for you. So, go for it. You spend all your money, do whatever it takes to make this happen. You won't have any regrets. It's going to feel so good when you pass this exam and you actually make it. I mean, if you're taking the exam, you're one of those people that actually went for it and actually did what they were supposed to do. A lot of people talk about how, man, hey, one of these days I'm going to take that agent exam. Well, 99% of the people never do. And if you're actually one of the ones that actually did it, and kind of put your money down and kind of bet on yourself, don't stop betting on yourself now. Make sure that you have exhausted every single avenue and every option that you have. And, don't leave anything on the field. Don't have any regrets. Make sure you go for it. I think we're going to hear from we've got a couple more messages from a couple of our sponsors. And Sam, if we're ready to go, let's roll on those. Please.
You can't become an agent without passing the exam. We can help. We introduced our first practice test in 2012. Since then, we've added a study guide and a second exam, and we've helped hundreds pass a test that 55% fail. Our clients succeed at a rate 25% higher than others. For the cost of a plane ticket, you can buy our guide and take both our exams multiple times. Check us out.
Really enjoyed the training. I pretty much had everything over here.
Margaritas was the best decision I ever made. I came out and had a great combine.
Margaritas is exceptional. I've been coming here for 4 years, since I was a rookie, since I came out of college.
The Pete and everybody else, without them, this wouldn't be possible right now.
Some of the best players in every position, they come here and work out.
The staff is phenomenal. The medical, everybody here is family-based, family-oriented.
Trained here for the combine, and I don't think there's no better place than this.
Got faster, got stronger.
All right. Good morning, Bo. Bo, tell us who we got next, man.
Our next guest this morning, as we wrap up the Friday's edition of the State of Football, from his seat as the publisher of the rebelgrove.com, Neal McCready is one of the most connected writers in the SEC. Part of that is because he's covered the conference and the better part of 30 years, which is just incredible, all the football that he's had to see. But working for the Oxford Eagle, working for the Mobile Press Register before taking the helm at the Rebel Grove in 2008. He's also been a contributor to Inside the League, as well as a longtime friend. Thanks very much, Neal, for joining us this morning. Welcome to the State of Football.
Bo, Neal, good to be with you.
Thank
you.
Thank
you so much for joining us, man. It's an honor. It's a pleasure as always.
You're sorry about the time change. I had a little time change mix-up. That happens. That Eastern Central thing. It happens.
No worries, man. Those guys on the East Coast, they think they run everything. I guess I left it. I kind of made that assumption as well. That's my bad. So, Neal, Lane Kiffin's been one of the more recognizable names in college football. We can all acknowledge that, but more because he's colorful than because of his great success on the field. Is Ole Miss where he really takes the next step and this becomes his legacy job?
I think there's a chance. Sure. I mean, it's one of those things, right, where people always say, well, Lane Kiffin's going to leave. And you're like, okay, well, for where? And that's not a criticism of Lane, but Ole Miss is paying him $6 million a year. So that immediately cuts the field quite a bit. I mean, how many programs out there are going to pay $7.5, $8 million a year or more? And look, if he wins big at Ole Miss, they'll pay him more because they want to keep him. And now that the SEC, you guys may have heard about this, Texas and Oklahoma are joining the league. I don't know if y'all heard. And there's some more stuff that's going to happen. The SEC is going to have more money than God. And Ole Miss is in the SEC. I mean, Ole Miss has this thing about, who should be their mascot and that kind of thing. Ole Miss should go back and figure out who got them in the SEC back in the 1930s, and that cat should be the mascot. I mean, that dude should be put up. Like they finally took the Confederate statue down and all that stuff. They should put his statue up, make it like bright gold, put spotlights on it, because he got him in the SEC. And look, winning in the SEC is going to be hard, but from a money standpoint, they're going to have more money than just about anybody that's not in the SEC. So I don't know where Lane goes. You know, is he the next guy at Florida? He'd have to win really big at Ole Miss for that to happen. Is he the next guy at LSU? Same thing. And I don't see that he's the guy that replaced Nick Saban at Alabama in 25 years when Nick Saban finally retires. I mean, it's so I think there's a chance people just write it off and go, well, he's going to go to Miami. Well, Manny Diaz is at Miami. He's going to go to USC again. He's already been there once. He's going to go to UCLA. UCLA is going to suddenly invest $8 million a year in a football coach. There's no sign of that. So I think there's a chance that he's here for a while.
Okay. And Neal, just so he does like you, Tuesday's program, all our guests are from Hawaii. So everybody that Neal knew from that part of the world had to call into the show at 3:30 a.m. So he definitely likes you. He took care of you. But in all seriousness, in 5 years, how many conferences are there in the Power 5 football? And do you even think conferences will exist in 5 years?
It's a great question. Well, answer one is fewer than 5. 4 at the most.
Wow.
If you told me 2, I'd buy it. So I've done this for a while, guys. And when a guy like Jay Billis comes on ESPN with the camera on him, on the record, and, quote, pontificates about the ACC asking the SEC, hey, fellas, y'all want to merge? He's not making that up. That wasn't a thought that he had when he was out walking his dog, just, hey, what would be funny is if the ACC called. No. He's on camera on ESPN. He's super connected. He's had those conversations. When reporters like Andy Staples, The Athletic, I've known Andy for a long time. I knew Andy when I was covering Auburn and he was covering Florida. When reporters like Andy Staples come out and go, hey, the Big Ten might ought to think about getting proactive and raiding the Pac-12. That's not him just making stuff up over his morning coffee. He's had that conversation. And so when you hear little rumblings from people that USC is not particularly happy with the Pac-12 right now, when you hear these rumblings from people in the Big Ten that certain major programs in the Big Ten remain livid about what happened last year with the COVID thing. And when you look around, you see Clemson and Florida State and schools like that look at the SEC and they go, okay, so Texas and Oklahoma are joining probably next season. And by 2024, those teams are going to be making what? And we're making a lot less than that. Well, what do we do about it? Well, there's not a lot you can do about it. And so I think when you hear talk about Clemson and Florida State being disenchanted a little bit with the ACC, I think you have to take that seriously. And then, when the only thing you get from the detractors are like, well, those contracts are written in stone. No, that no contract is written in stone. If you've ever talked to an attorney will tell you, this one might be harder to extricate ourselves from, but nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. So to answer your question, Bo, and it's a great one. It's the one topic that we all should be talking about. I think there's a real strong chance that this is a long-winded answer to your question. We've always talked about there's going to be a breakaway, that the Power 5 or whatnot is going to break away. There's a perception out there that it's going to happen this one magical moment. Boom, we just break away. No, it's a long process, and we're in that process right now. There's no question that last Wednesday when Texas and Oklahoma, when that story broke in the Houston Chronicle, that was the first earthquake that's going to break the land away. No question.
Neal, are you saying Clemson and Florida State may be the next 2 dominoes to fall?
I don't know that I'd go that strong, Neal, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, look, this SEC money is a game changer. When the story came out this week, and I can't remember who exactly broke it first, but I got wind of it right around the same time, that the way that Greg Sankey, and by the way, who knew Greg Sankey was such an assassin? When it came out that Greg Sankey and the SEC, that the deal they cut with Disney /ESPN/ABC, whatever you want to call that media entity, okay? When that deal got cut, it was, if you expand and ESPN signs off on the expansion, it's a pro rata deal. In other words, there's always been this assumption that if you add schools in, that your slice of the pie gets smaller. Mm-hmm. Not now. No, ESPN basically said, or Disney, however you want to do that, if we like the team, like if you go add Louisiana Tech, and I'm from Ruston, so I can make fun. If you add Louisiana Tech, we're not interested. Mm-hmm. But if you add Texas, hey, we'll just make more pie. Mm-hmm. You add Oklahoma, we'll just make more pie. I mean, go buy some ingredients, stick it in the oven, more pie. Mm-hmm. Well, it stands to reason that if Clemson wanted to come in, that ESPN would say, yeah, man, we'll make more pie. For Clemson? Sure. Mm-hmm. For USC, Ohio State, Michigan, we'll make more pie. Mm-hmm. So that story comes out in a way that obviously allows the SEC to tell those teams without ever telling those schools. The SEC can go, we didn't tamper. Mm-hmm. That story came out. Those schools look at this and go, that's a lot of pie. How much pie are we getting? Mm-hmm. How much do we like pie? Mm-hmm. And understand pie is code for money, and they really like pie. And so I don't know what happens, man. I'm telling you, I don't know what happens when some of these schools start looking at their situation. And I think the Big Ten's safe because they're making big money too. But if I'm the Big Ten today, I'm making sure that my deal is a pro-rata deal, and I'm calling Notre Dame, and I'm probably calling some of those Pac-12 schools that aren't getting anywhere near as much pie, and saying, hey, you guys interested? And it's complicated from a conference standpoint, right? Because it's more than football. It's one thing to fly your football team from Los Angeles to Ann Arbor. It's another thing when you got to fly your archery team and your volleyball team and all the time for all this stuff. So I don't know how the whole thing plays out, but guys, it's never been more fluid. This is a totally different, in my opinion, totally different landscape that's being shaped than the one that was shaped in 2009, 2010, when the Longhorn Network happened and all of that stuff, and everything almost went chaotic and didn't quite go chaotic. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, you see it with Texas. They had to swallow some pride. They had to admit, yeah, we're big time. We have a big brand, all that. But Texas A&M did the right thing, and we didn't 12, 13 years ago, whatever that was. They've amended that now. Texas is going to walk into the SEC with a ton of swagger. And they're going to see right off the bat that two things. One, yeah, it's really hard here. But two, there's a ton of money. And at a place like Texas, when you have a ton of money, the sky's the limit. And so there's only a handful of programs around the country that can compete with Texas from a brand standpoint. And if you're those programs, you have to at least think about what Texas did, what Oklahoma did, and say, that's probably the route that we ought to be considered taking.
You know, I don't think people understand how much football pulls the plow for all the athletic programs at all these schools. And if you've got that money train running, it's the rising tide, right, raises all boats. And so everyone's got to look at that, and they got to really think long and hard about it. All right, so Neal, let's change gears a little bit, and let's talk a little bit more draft. We've seen in the last four drafts, there have been quarterbacks who were not even rated as first rounders, go from nowhere essentially to either the first pick in the draft, or perhaps if there were no Trevor Lawrence, we would have seen it again with Zach Wilson. But going back to Baker Mayfield, and then Kyler Murray, and then Joe Burrow, and now, and then last year Zach Wilson was the number 2 pick. Nobody really knew who his name was going into the season. Can Matt Corral be that guy? Maybe in a year, in 2 years? I mean, has he got that kind of potential?
I think so. I've always been super high on Matt. Even when Ole Miss was doing the crazy thing where they got away from him and went to John Rice Plumlee, and you're running this veer thingy in the SEC that is never, ever, ever going to beat a good team. I mean, yeah, you might beat Kentucky, you might beat Arkansas, but you're not beating the big boys running this one-dimensional little runny thing against Alabama. He's got a big-time arm. He's grown up a ton. He is a very bright kid. He is really matured. He has great leadership skills. He can make every throw. He can throw the deep ball. He's athletic. In my old age, I've shrunk to 6'1". I was standing next to Matt about a week ago, and he's at least an inch and a half taller than me, maybe 2. So when people go, well, he's kind of small, I don't know. I mean, he's almost 6'2.5", 6'3". That's not maybe the 6'5" ideal quarterback that you have, but that's not like you're running a 5'10" guy out there. He's right. Big enough. He's tough. Again, he can run. He can beat you with his feet. To answer your question, Neal, I think he's a first-round quarterback. He really flourished under Jeff Lebby and Lane Kiffin a year ago. And now he goes into his first season since high school where he has a coordinator for the second year in a row. And I think that's going to benefit him. He's in the same system for the second year. Yeah, they're going to miss Elijah Moore. They're going to miss Kenny Yeboah, but he's got weapons, and they're going to use Jerrion Ely in a number of different ways. I think he's going to have a big season. I told somebody, I was on a show in Omaha, Nebraska early this morning, and they were talking about, betting lines. I don't think Matt Corral is going to win the Heisman. Don't get me wrong. But given the odds, I mean, if you're out in Vegas and you put a 10 spot, just $10 on Matt Corral to win the Heisman, there's worse ways to take a fun little risk. I think he's got a chance, right? And so their schedule shapes up in a way that he could put up big numbers. I think NFL people are going to love him. And when they sit down and talk to him, I think they're going to be really impressed with how much he's grown up since his freshman year.
Mm-hmm. All right, Bo, take us out, buddy.
Began the show today. We were talking about our favorite guests and how much fun we've had, but you're ending the show on, I mean, you're just sending us, I'm telling you, this has been fantastic. Your insight is incredible. But with that said, and I mean, what team in this 2021 season do you think is the surprise team in the SEC?
Surprise team in the SEC. I don't get to say Alabama, right? That's probably not a surprise. I'll tell you a team I think could finish second in the East and surprise people is Kentucky.
Wow.
I like them on both lines of scrimmage. I think they're really good up front. I like their schedule. They get Florida at home. I think in week 5, where I think they have a real chance to be 4-0 when Florida comes to Lexington, and it would be crazy. So that would be one of my first teams as a surprise. I think Ole Miss could be a surprise. Ole Miss's schedule shapes up where they could be 5-1 at the turn, the one loss at Alabama. They get LSU here in, week 7, the day they retire Eli Manning's jersey in Oxford. It'd be a zoo. They could win that game. And then after that, the only game left on their schedule that's just, to me, looks like an L is Texas A&M. So they could be a surprise. I think Auburn could be a surprise. I think Auburn's got some talent on their roster. They've got a great running back and Tank, and Nick is back for another season, and I think he's in a better system now with Harsin, and Auburn had gotten a little stale under Malzahn, and I think Harsin will bring some freshness to them, so they could surprise a little bit. Other than that, I think it's pretty status quo. I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing this LSU thing about LSU is going to be 11-1 or whatnot. It's hard for me to look at LSU and all of the chaos that's happening around that program over the last 12 plus months and think, oh no, they'll completely lock that out. They'll block that out. They'll be fine. I don't see that. And then the one that's interesting, of course, is Texas A&M, because their schedule is awesome. I mean, they're going to be 5-0 when Alabama comes to College Station. And they don't have to be better than Alabama all season. They got to be better for 3.5 hours on a Saturday afternoon at home in a zoo. And if they can pull that off, their next 3 weeks where you would go, oh boy, they are ripe for a letdown. And they would be, holy cow, ripe for a letdown. But they go to Missouri, they come home for South Carolina, and then they get a weekend off before they finish with, I think their close to their season is Auburn at home, at Ole Miss, like Prairie View or somebody at home in one of those bye games, and then they go to LSU at the end. So yeah, there's some, look, that Auburn game, that Ole Miss game, that LSU game, those would be tough games. But if they were to beat Alabama, and Alabama does lose on occasion, they've got a chance. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about them in the national title hunt. And frankly, they could go 11-1 and play a decent game against Alabama and still get a chance to compete for the national title at the end of the season. So I don't know if that answers your question, but my eyes are on more teams than just Alabama. I think Alabama's the best team in the league. They're the best team in the country. Saban has done a job that I don't know anyone will ever be able to repeat ever again. And Neal knows me long enough to know I hate the words ever and always and never. Those are such big words, but I don't see how anyone ever does what Saban's done again in modern football. But there's some teams in the league that could make some noise.
I just like talking about the SEC and kind of reminding each of ourselves what a strong conference it is top to bottom. It's not just Alabama. There's a lot of possibilities out there. And if there were another national champion to come out of the SEC and it wasn't Alabama, it wouldn't be a total surprise. There's a lot of talent there, obviously, a lot of opportunity, a lot of things going on. Neal, thank you for being on this week. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I won't keep you but a second on this, but what's funny, you say that about the SEC, and it's true. Here's what always strikes me about this year in the SEC. We're talking about Auburn fifth in the West.
Yeah.
You look at Mississippi State, that team has some talent. They have it's Mike Leach in year 2. They usually take a little bit of a jump in year 2 under Mike Leach teams. I think they've got some defensive talent there for sure. And then you look at Arkansas. And Arkansas won 3 games last season, but they were a play away from beating Missouri. They basically beat Auburn, and then the officials robbed them of it. They were a play or 2 away from beating LSU. That was almost a 6-win team for Sam Pittman in Fayetteville.
Wow.
And nobody talked about Arkansas doing anything. And don't get me wrong, I don't think they will. But Pittman's doing a nice job there. That's not going to be a walk in the park for the Auburns and Ole Misses and Texas A&Ms this year when they play Arkansas. That's the power of the league. That's the part of the league, frankly, that Texas is going to – the adjustment for Texas is not going to be getting up for Georgia or getting up for Alabama. It's going to be going to start the week after you get up for Georgia or Alabama. When you come in there, you're human. You come in there and you're a little flat, and guess what? They can't wait to play Texas. They're geeked up to play Texas. And if you're not ready, they'll kick your ass. That's the thing about this league. Outside of Vanderbilt, everybody else, and maybe South Carolina right now, everybody else is perfectly capable of kicking your ass if you're not ready on a given day. And we do this thing in the media where we're like, oh, this team has so many more players than this team. Yeah. You don't have to do it all year. You just got to do it one day. And if you're super geeked up and super focused and the other team comes in and they're distracted and flat, like a team like Ole Miss, the way they score points and move the ball, you can look up against a team like an Ole Miss or a team like a Florida, an Arkansas, and all of a sudden you're down 17, 21 points, and man, you're in for a dogfight. And their fans smell blood and the place is different. And that's where it's going to be. That's going to be the culture shock for Texas and Oklahoma. There's not a Kansas in this league other than Vanderbilt. There's just not games that are perpetually difficult that you know this, Neal, and Bo, I'm sure you do too. You're a coach. You can't get your team emotionally sky high 13 times.
No way.
And it's not possible with kids. And boy, in this league, when you're not emotionally ready and the other team is, and it happens all the time, you get popped.
Yeah, great point, man. Great point.
That's the part of Nick Saban that he doesn't get enough credit for. He's so adaptable. He's adjusted to the game as the game has changed, and they recruit so much talent and so much depth of talent that they get everybody's Super Bowl. Every week it's Super Bowl for the other team, and they hold on and get it done. And that's what's really remarkable about him is his ability to keep that team so steady all year. He's able to get young people to stay emotionally steady. I got 3 young people in my house. Emotional steadiness is difficult. He does it, and he does it so well. And when it's all over for Saban and we write his legacy, everyone's going to write about the championships and stuff. The 2 things that you should write about is his consistency and his adaptability. Because when he went and hired Lane Kiffin as his offensive coordinator, something tells me that was the last thing he really wanted to do. It's not about Lane, by the way, but just going to a different kind of offense. And then when Lane left, he brings in Sarkisian. That's not who Nick Saban was when he was coming up. Nick Saban was man, we're going to get physical and we're going to go win us a 13-7 game and we're going to frustrate the hell out of you. And now they're like, okay, you want to win 63-49? We'll do it. That's what they did in Oxford last year. It was something like 63-47 or some insane number. I mean, he's capable of doing that too. That's the beauty of Saban.
Mm-hmm. Neal, you're our last guest this week. I wish you'd been our first one, man. I wish we'd give you the whole hour. Honestly, I'm ready for college football right now. I may be ready to put the helmet back on, man. I'm a 52 years old, and I'm jacked up. What about you, Bo?
It was fantastic. The insight, Neal, and your knowledge, it just oozes from that microphone when you speak. I mean, I was just sitting here. I'm a fan of it. I was just in awe of the information. Like I said, I could keep going on and just talk, it actually maybe Sam can just keep, I'm just going to sit in his office for the rest of the day and listen to his other jokes.
Well, listen, I want to go on record before we leave. Neal, if you put the helmet on, I am not responsible for the ACL and the Achilles. I'm completely not. I'm out.
Neal, I might get her putting the helmet back on, man. It's been a long time. It's been a
Believe
long
me.
time. Everything's breaking down now, man.
Someone wrote a story. I played high school ball, and that's as far as I went, by the way, in Ruston. And they wrote this big story about the Ruston-Neville rivalry from back in like the 80s and stuff. And I played in one of the games that they referenced. And I thought, you know what? For just a minute, I was all fired up. And I thought, no, not now. No way. I'm done. No chance. I can run a long time in a straight line, but if you ask me to cut,
hey,
no good.
Discretion is the better part of valor, Neal. And I think that I've become a lot more discreet in my 50 years on this marble, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thanks again so much, man. You delivered as always. I can't thank you enough. It's been a great show, and we're so happy to have you, man.
Well, you're a great friend, and I'm always you've always been here for me. I'll always be happy to come on your show. So just let me know. I'll be happy to do it anytime.
You're a man, brother. Thank you again. Have a great weekend.
You got to.
Take care, Neal.
Wow. All right, man. I think we're all fired up now. That was incredibly insightful. That was incredibly high energy. That was a blast all the way around. So glad to have Neal on, but so glad to have so many guests on. It's been a great, great week. I can't believe we had 15 experts in their field, subject matter people that know exactly what they're talking about to come on the show and talk about so many things. It's been a real blast. And Bo, it's been a real pleasure having you on, man. I can't imagine doing this without you. Kind of as my wingman. Thanks so much, brother. It's been great. Next week we will be gone. Rick will be back in the power chair. He'll be calling all the shots, doing everything. It'll be back to normal for Rick, and I'm sure he'll be have similar energy to what Neal had today because he will be rested and refreshed after taking the entire week of July off. Sam will be back. She's the most important member of this crew anyway. She'll be kind of running things from behind. You won't be seeing Sam, but everything that moves smoothly will be due to Sam. She's that important to the operation. Bo, last thoughts, buddy?
Is as insightful as Neal was when he referenced to the goofballs in the house, and he had 3. I know you got 2, and I got 2 as well. I thought that was one of the more insightful things. But no, fabulous week, state of football, fabulous stuff. And again, those agents, if you're looking to pass his exam, ITL Sunday, Monday, 125, 75. Like I said, get that done. But Sam, fantastic job. Neal, thank you. Rick, thank you for allowing us to partake in this. It was wonderful.
It's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. I hope we get asked to do it again sometime one of these days. I'll jump at the chance. as long as I got guests and friends that know a little bit more about football than I do, and there's a whole lot of those people, then we'll be back to do the show. Signing off. Thanks so much for everything. Bo, thanks again, brother. It's been a blast. To all of our viewers, to everyone else out there, have a great weekend. And we're yours in football. And we'll see you again soon.